If you are a neurodivergent entrepreneur or professional, whether that's ADHD, ASD, OCD, or you don't resonate with any of these labels, but you know that your brain works differently than most people. And even though you have enough stability in your job to explore what you're passionate about, there's some kind of fear barrier that's preventing you from diving into your creative work, then you're going to want to stay until the end of this video because I'm going to break down the very first step you are going to need to take in order to resolve this. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Superbrain series, brought to you by the 25-Hour Day. My name is Colin Response. I am an internationally award-winning performing artist, global ambassador for the largest luxury brand in the world, and I did all of this with what most people call ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder. I disagreed. And so I built a business that's helped now over 150 neurodiverse entrepreneurs and professionals rewire their brains for efficiency so that they can execute the vision they have for their business and their careers in half the time and with half the effort than you are putting in right now, ultimately so that they could add $10,000 to $20,000 a month to their income, but most importantly, so that they can have the freedom to enjoy their everyday quality of life in the process. And today I am blessed to be joined with our guest, Cece. Now, Cece is a neurodivergent professional who works as a criminal defense lawyer. And today I'm going to show her why she's stuck so that she can be empowered to decide whether she wants to permanently remove these barriers from her life today or not. And I'm going to do it while walking backwards. So let's get this step counter going and bring on our lovely guest, Cece. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Colin. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're one of the few people that actually ask me how I'm doing, and I appreciate it.
Oh,
So I'm doing even better now. Well, I have your submission, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up, and I'm just going to have you read it aloud.
I'm getting all the universal signs that I should be getting back to writing and performing, or at least public speaking, but I have some kind of terror barrier that's keeping me from writing. I'm at a good place in my safe job to get back to my creative endeavors, and I've had multiple people reach out to show me that there is a demand for my work. I've made a schedule to write, but I just can't seem to bring myself to sit down and put the words to paper or screen.
Thank you for sharing that. So the very first step that we're going to need to take is we're going to compartmentalize a lot of the things that you mentioned so we can clearly see what we're working with. First, we're just going to start with the aspects that we need to reframe into the affirmative so that we can get clarity on where we need to go. So let's get past this and move to here. Some sort of terror barrier keeping me from writing. I'm in a good place in my safe job to get back to doing this. Most people reach out. There's a demand. I made a schedule to write, but can't seem to bring myself to sit down and put the words to paper. So these are the two areas that we need to first immediately address so that we can get clarity on the full picture here. So simply put, if you have some sort of terror barrier that's keeping you from writing, what do you want to be experiencing? What would be the polarity of that terror barrier?
I want to be experiencing, I it doesn't feel like affirmative language, but I want to miss writing. I want it to feel like a hunger or a thirst. Like I've just got to get back to this paper. I've got to get back to this project. That was definitely something that I had before where, I would have a piece that just kind of consumed me for a time. And anytime I had free time, that's where I was going. Whereas right now I find myself going to, scrolling or work stuff, or really just even being exhausted. So I want it to be I want to feel like it is my priority. Like it's my primary thing, and everything that I'm doing is supporting this project that I'm working on. If I'm taking care of my body, or I'm spending time with my family, or I'm doing any of the other things that I have to do, or that I spend my time doing, that it has the benefit of supporting this project that I'm working on, whether it's hygiene or exercise or the food I eat. But I guess I just want to feel a sense of ease about the projects, like that they are attractive, that they are pulling me to them, and that when I do them, I'm feeling a sense of satisfaction, instead of a chore or an obligation or one more thing I need to do on my calendar or on my to-do list.
So as you can see, as we dig into this, we can see a lot that's happening on the polarity of this. So we moved from experiencing a hunger, a thirst, which is not really affirmative language. Bless you. We're moving from experiencing some sort of terror barrier to moving to a hunger or a thirst, which isn't actually the most productive of emotions, but it seems like it was getting us to the place where we started to move towards it feeling like a priority and feeling everything you're doing is supporting this project and that you have a sense of ease and it's attractive to you and brings you a sense of satisfaction. Bring us up here. Bring us up here. Bring me a sense of satisfaction. So when we say everything I'm doing is supporting this project, we're going to need to get more clear on this because you go to the washroom and grab a Kleenex to blow your nose after you sneeze. It's like, is that supporting this project? Maybe, maybe not. But when we talk about everything, it's like I turned the light switch on. I put some ketchup back in the fridge and it was supporting this project. It's like, okay, well, we're never going to achieve that because we haven't actually clearly specified what we actually mean by that. We want to move away from one, platitudes. We don't really have many platitudes here, but we also want to move away from overarching declarations of like infiniteness, everything and nothing, right? We've clarified that everything means family, work, health, and self-care. So now we want to clarify in what way do you want your work to be supporting this craft? In what way do you want your health and self-care to support this craft? Now I'll give you some examples. And for folks who are watching this, go ahead and post in the comments below if you have any ideas, if you were in CC's perspective, because this is a thought exercise for you to expand your awareness. Now I'm going to give some examples. They may not be CC's situation, but to garner some examples for CC to think about her perspective. So if I'm saying that there are things in my family that are supporting this project, let's say it's a writing project, the things I write about are my favorite experiences with my family from the previous week or from the previous day. Or it could be I ask my daughter what this week's story is going to be about. Or I ask my husband what was the thing he was the most proud of this week and what his experience was like. And then I use that to inspire or influence what my topic is going to be about. It could be that I sit around at dinner time on a Friday night and I have a bowl of folded up pieces of paper that have a bunch of topics. And each Friday, one person chooses the topic that ends up having them share what do they think about this. And that inspires what I'm going to write. Right. So these are all just random examples. Obviously, I'm just coming off the top of my head. I didn't think about this before. But you can see that once we start to orient ourselves towards the direction of course, this umbrella, specifically what we're looking to achieve, it opens up our consciousness to the possibilities of ideas that if I want everything that I'm doing to be supporting the project, well, I have to specify, well, everything means family, work, health, and self-care. Okay, so let's look at family specifically. How could family be supporting this rather than I want the things to be supporting it, but it's not. So just for example, what are some ways that family could be supporting this project?
Yeah, so I think certainly I want my writing to bring me a level of peace and self-awareness that allows me to show up and be more present with them when I am with them, and vice versa. I want the time I spend with them to be so connected that's the level of connection I can bring to my writing, because I do want my writing to be connecting with others. I want it to be something that I can share with them. I want to write about things that I can share with my family and things that they can articulate, that they appreciate having in writing, or in a format that they can have to reflect on or review later in their life. And as morbid as it sounds, just, one day maybe when I'm gone, that they have these memories or these perspectives of me and from me.
So perfect. For all the folks watching this, you can see how the examples I gave to Cece completely different than the examples of the perspective that she had coming to this. And ideally, as you're writing your comments, you might find that yours are very different too. The point is that you're coming to something that is bringing clarity to what does that actually even mean to you, right? So from my perspective, was more from a creative sense of how we're going to generate these ideas. What Cece shared was it's the means to the creation of this thing helps the people in her family enhance their own self-awareness, their own connectivity, and it's something that they can reflect on and review to do that very thing and to share that very thing with her. And also so that these can be something that they use as they grow into adulthood. And who knows, perhaps take on those same perspectives to, create their own messaging or expand that same thing towards their family when they so choose to have one. Right. Now that we've seen that example, what does it mean for your work to be supporting this project?
So I think so far, and what I could see going forward, is my work giving me these unique experiences that I have to write about, unique opportunities to meet people and to kind of flex that compassion, so that I can tell better stories, so that I learn better stories, I hear better stories, and also gives me more visibility, that I can share my writing with more people than I would have normally encountered, or who may think that they'd be interested in what I have to say.
So allowing you to develop your own compassion, develop your compassion muscles, compassion biceps, and so that you can so that you can tell, hear, and share better stories. Okay, so that seems clear too. Now we're getting the pattern of this clearly. So now we're going to move on to health and self-care. How does that support you in this endeavor?
Um, I want to be gentle, but disciplined, and disciplined, gentle and disciplined. Um, I want to be curious about how I change over time, um, and grateful for my ability to perceive all the things that I'm able to share through my writing, whether it be my, five physical senses, or my compassion, or any of the stories and ways that I connect with people. I'm a unique individual, and I'm the only person who can do those things and take care of myself. And I want to value that, and make, again, make that a priority as well. But I want to see that, in my writing, that I recognize and appreciate who I am, and that it's unique, and that it's something to offer the world. And not, well, I'll stop at the not, because we'll stay affirmative.
Well, let's actually speak to the not, because we know we don't erase, we replace. So we want to see what was going to come up there so that we can see and make sure that we have addressed its affirmative.
Okay. So not criticizing what is in order to chase something that I see others having. I think that I can strive for something different without criticizing or negating how much I've accomplished to get where I am. Yeah, I want more curiosity about where am I, and what do I want, and how am I changing and growing, and how can I change and grow, instead of you're not there yet. I think after criticizing, maybe I said something about like being envious of where others are.
So essentially, we want to be gentle and disciplined, curious of how you change, grateful for your abilities, striving for something different, and then without these other things, which is like criticizing where you are or negating where you are. As we talk about where you are, right? It's not just your ability. So let's actually speak about, it's like, okay, the opposite of criticizing or negating where you are, what would the polarity of that be? Again, folks, if you're watching this, that's a crazy thing to say because you are watching this if you're hearing me say this. So folks who are watching this, go ahead and comment below your ideas of what the polarity of criticizing or negating where I am could possibly be. This is very nuanced because we can see there's a little slight difference between negating one's abilities versus this. So what's something that comes to mind for you?
I think appreciating all that I have accomplished.
Cool. Appreciating all that I've accomplished. It's a nuanced difference, but we can tell these two things are talking about two different things. Next, envious of where others are would be the polarity of that.
Trusting that I am where I am supposed to be.
Ah, beautiful. Now that we've looked at the polarity of this, can you see the trend of language that is happening in here. Even criticizing and getting where I am, envious of where others can be. When we look at the polarity, we can actually see the direction, appreciating all that I've accomplished, trusting that I am where I am supposed to be. If you were to read these two things separately, you wouldn't even think they have anything to do with each other. But they're falling under the same umbrella, which is why if you were to try to eliminate this, if you were to try to eliminate this, it doesn't mean that you would have achieved this, right?
Like compliment.
Yes, exactly. I can complement where I presently am, and I can acknowledge where I am rather than negate where I am. I just kind of declare this is where I am. Here, it's like envious of where others are. It's like, okay, I can tell other people, that's great that you're there, right? And you could do both of those things, and they would accomplish some positive influence, but there's still going to be all these other things under this umbrella that never got addressed because we're focusing on eliminating what we don't want instead of focusing on achieving what we're looking to achieve. Whereas if our attention were to move towards appreciating all that you've accomplished and trusting that you are where you're supposed to be, we can see how tightly knit those two things are together, which also clearly shows us where the gap is that's causing all the symptoms on this side, even though we may think it's all of these other things. So let's keep going. What would be the polarity of having these things drive you to chase something else?
Mm. Um, I don't know the clear phrase, but it's something closer to being, yeah, like I don't want to say driven either. Like all of that feels like some external force, but it'd be something relating to an internal motivation, um, or a knowing instead of that influence, that external influence. So I guess it's clarity. It's focused and clear on my personal purpose.
Okay. So I'm sure it has become abundantly clear as you look at this to see why didn't I just simply say to Cece when she said, okay, we're not going to go there because that's not the affirmative. Why I said, no, 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 no. That's actually where we need to go. And I always say, do not erase, replace. Why? The reason why is because all the language that we use, we're using because it's the best language we have found to describe or relate to our experience, whether positive or negative. It's the best language we have used. So if we identify something as something we do not want, it is not sufficient to simply refrain from it, because just from refraining from the language, you don't eliminate the emotional arousal, you don't eliminate the experience, and therefore later on when that same experience comes up again, it's going to resurface the same words you didn't say last time because you didn't have other better words to replace it with. Even if we're like, okay, we're in a controlled environment, we're here, so we're like, okay, we're not going to say this negative thing. It's like, okay, so now when you're not in a controlled environment, you have less mental bandwidth, other things are happening. The language that's going to come up or the experience that's going to come up is being envious of others or criticizing where you are or negating where you are or something pulling you towards something else because of what you're seeing, because you don't have any other cognitive process to funnel that initial emotional reaction, or I would say emotional arousal, through. There's no other gateway or pathway. It's going to go down the one it's used to. So we take this moment to be like, wait, what pathway is it going down? Now I can reframe that to the affirmative. So I can create a new pathway so that when I'm now in the environment, I can start to practice guiding from that initial emotional stimulus down this neurological pathway. It's almost as if you have a sidewalk that's being, for those of you who live in maybe the Eastern hemisphere or whatever, where you know what snow is. It's like you have a freshly plowed street and it's just a clear road to walk down. And you're like, ooh, I don't really want to walk down that road. But you expect that every time you want to go walking, even though the snow is like up to your waist, you're going to take this other path straight through the snow and you're just going to walk waist through snow. And you think that you're going to get to the destination you're trying to get to. It's like, no, what you're going to need to do is days before, a day before, the morning of, you need to plow that route so that when it's time to go there, then you can move down the path. But right now, the path doesn't exist. This is what causes people to go in this cycle. They're thinking, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? XYZ, because I keep doing this thing, not realizing you haven't charted the path. You have not paved the way for you to walk down that path. But for some reason, you think you're going to get there through waist deep snow. right? That's not going to happen. So we have to actually first address it. And it doesn't mean that just because you plowed it, you're going to be able to run all the way through it. And it might not be as well plowed as the other path, but it will be walkable and probably more favorable for you to take that path because it's way shorter and it's way more effective. And then as you keep walking down it, snow is going to melt. Other people are going to start to walk through that path. Who knows? Maybe one day you wake up and somebody else has plowed that same path for you because they realized it was a better path. And now you get to yield the benefits of walking down that same path simply because you decided proactively to create it. It may even snow again, but because people are constantly taking that path, the snow never really gets back to waist level. So, enough with the analogies for now. We're looking at this and we want to take this through the only remaining piece, which is we addressed this. So now we want to look at that you've made schedule to write, but just can't seem to bring yourself to sit down and put words to the screen. So now, even though we're going to clean this up, we can see how health and self-care, how that is meant to influence this process, right? So perhaps you can share with me how appreciating all that you've accomplished, trusting in where you are and where you're supposed to be, and having an internal motivation or influence that's focused on your own clarity of your personal purpose, how that impacts or how would those things be supporting this project?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say strangely, but it's probably not strange to you at all. That I think that actually is the core answer. I mean, as far as I can see, it's it feels very resonant, that feeling like I don't have something worth saying, that I don't that people don't want to hear what I have to say, that I don't really know how to share it. Not trusting myself and my story and my perspective is what's keeping me from sitting down and writing. So it is that feeling. I've got to know in myself that the things that I experience, the things that I believe, are worth putting down on paper and worth sharing, and worth saving, um, in order to do the writing.
As they say, the problem is the solution.
Someone says that.
Somebody said that. So when we look at this and we see that I've made a schedule to write, but can't seem to bring myself to sit down and put the words to the paper or the screen, you share with me that like, this is exactly what we are, in fact, talking about.
Yeah, I mean, even right, the like trusting that I am where I am supposed to be, the internal motivation. Like, I think it's on my calendar. I plan to do it. I want to do it. But when that moment comes, I'm telling myself there's something else that's more important than whatever it is that that people need to hear from me. That whatever I have to share is not important enough, that I should be spending that time doing something else. And that's me telling myself that something else is more important. That's me being motivated to do something other than share my story or reflect on my story or sit with myself and my own emotions and find out and be curious about what I really think, and how I really feel. And it's driving me, it's definitely driven by a belief about what I'm supposed to be doing, as opposed to being clear on my personal purpose and why I'm here and what my story is.
Mm. Now, I want to remind all the folks that are watching this, if you've made it this far and you have your own challenge that you would like support with, I want you to go ahead and comment beneath this video, because one of the comments is going to be selected for one of our future episodes. And if I see that it's something that other people could definitely benefit from, that might be you invited on to your own episode of the Neurodivergent Super Brain Theories. Now, let's reflect back on Cece so that we can see what her reflection is.
So it kind of almost feels not fair, because obviously I started with a problem, but the solution was in the problem. It was those underlying thoughts, right? I knew them to be a terror barrier. I knew it was something inside of me that was keeping me from just sitting down and doing the thing. But I mean, almost ironically, I'm constantly looking like, well, maybe I need to move the time block, or maybe I need a new journal, or maybe I need to be writing in a different place or a different whatever. When really there was, going back to those metaphors, I was trying to push through this knee deep snow where things had built up, because I had spent so much time, since my creativity was my focus, convincing myself that work and family and all these other things, that I needed to do them first. And so that was that was my go-to. That was the language that I had. That was the framework that I had. That was the perspective that I had. And to find the language that is both not just the opposite, it also resonates. It feels true. It allows both the fact that I do have work and family and health obligations that I need to tend to. And it took away from this feeling like, oh, this is one more thing I'm adding to it, by showing me how I can integrate this thing that I'm trying to do into the things I already do. Because ultimately, like, this desire to do it, this feeling, this purpose on my heart that I have, that it is what I should be doing, or that I want to be doing it, or that I can do it. There's this seed of belief that I can do it. It wasn't blossomed into the language saying that it's okay to do it, that it's powerful to do it, that it's valuable to do it, because I had spent so much time suppressing it and pushing it down. And that's the narrative that had built up. And so this isn't like throwing away the narrative that I have. It is clarifying the real totality of the narrative that had me thinking that this was a problem in the first place. I thought it was a problem because I have both of these things, and they seemed like they weren't meshing. And then I sat there and I looked at them together, and now we have a statement that feels true, that feels accessible, and that, I mean, right, just within it, it literally, there were two statements that we needed to clarify and turn to the affirmative. And once I really got clear on that first one, it clarified that second one too, because it is a consistent, deeply rooted, truthful solution.
Mm. Thanks for that reflection. As a wise person once said to me, the problem is the solution. Even though only two pieces were areas where the language needed to move to unravel something, like you said, it almost feels like not fair. It's like, I had a problem before. Where's the problem now? Right? As much as, if you're watching this, you're like, what kind of magic potion asked? Like, the purpose isn't actually to wave a magic wand and dissolve people's challenges. The actual intention of this series is what Cece said, to expand one's perspective to the actual totality of the circumstance. Because when you actually expand your perspective, you're able to actually see the true root problem that is responsible for the challenge you are having. The issue that most neurodiverse entrepreneurs and most neurodiverse professionals are facing, and why they've had these issues for years, if not the vast majority of their life, is because the problem they have been trying to solve has been the symptoms of the root problem. So even when you invest in this coaching program, this generic business or productivity thing, or you get this app, or you go to therapy, or you use your medication, that you solve some of these problems, but new ones just come up in their place, because those things are just manifestations of the root problem. And if you do not address the root problem, the issues you are facing will persist. They will just come up in new manifestations. That is why you have spent so much time. That is why you have spent so much money. That is why you have spent so much energy to try to resolve something that you are still facing the challenge of years later, because the core neurological factors that are responsible for the issue you are facing remain. That is why all of these other solutions will never work for you if you are a neurodiverse entrepreneur or professional, because they are not designed to solve that problem. And it's not intentional. It's not like they're transpiring against you. It's a misdiagnosis of what the actual problem is, which is going to result in even more reasons why you can't do the thing you need to do, or why you're going to be even more overwhelmed, or you're going to have more things on your plate, or more things to learn that you feel inadequate about. Like, it's just going to create more. That is why you have to focus on the core neurological factors that are responsible. The problem is not you. The problem is that you have not learned how to leverage the way that the neurodiverse brain naturally works. You can permanently remove these barriers from your life. There is a simpler solution. So if you are somebody who has a vision for their business, their career, or their life that they want to be executing in the fastest and most efficient way possible, so that you can add 10 or $20,000 a month to your income or more, so that you can cut your working hours in half, so that you can have the freedom to dive into the things you're passionate about, spend the time with your family, to take care of yourself and the people you love to the highest capacity, and you are ready to remove these barriers from your life permanently, click the link that is in the description to this video so that you can actually see what is possible for you when you remove these barriers from your life. Or you can continue to spend twice as much time, twice as much energy than everybody around you, convincing yourself that it is because you're neurodivergent that you can't have these things in your life, when there are hundreds now of people in your same circumstance that are now able to live the life that you want to be living right now. But either way, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to our lovely guest, Cece, for her honesty. See you next time.